CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Juliette Mann. Our top stories this hour. It's the World Cup final, and Argentina captain Lionel Messi is on course for a fairy tale farewell. China rolls out COVID vaccines among vulnerable groups following the worst outbreak in 3 years. Strike standoff. The UK's government stands resolute on pay as trade unions threaten yet more walkouts. It's the season of goodwill. And Santas around the world are on the move for charity without their sleighs. Argentina lead France 2-0 in international football's biggest match, the World Cup final. The game is Argentina captain Lionel Messi's last match for his country, and with it, his final chance to get his hands on one major trophy that has eluded him. And he got off to a perfect start, scoring a penalty after 23 minutes. And Heidi Di Maria added a second 13 minutes later. Well, in a moment, we'll join CGTN reporters in Buenos Aires and in Paris. They're watching with fans at home. But first, let's speak to Dan Williams, who's in Doha. So, Dan, it looks like Messi might get his perfect ending. What's the atmosphere like in Doha?
Yeah, incredible, I have to say. All around me are these kind of cafes and restaurants. And as soon as that goal went in, that first goal from the penalty spot, well, everybody erupted in, with cheers. There's so many people here really pulling for Leo Messi and Argentina to win this World Cup. I mean, it was a fairly, I have to say, the penalty itself, fairly, perhaps fortunate around that goal. Di Maria going down in the box, and the referee, though, making no hesitation in pointing to the box, and up stepped Lionel Messi to score his 6th goal at this World Cup, so putting him one clear of Kylian Mbappe at the top of the Golden Boot, the top goal scorer award, and that's, of course, his 4th penalty that he's converted at this World Cup as well. So, yeah, cheers for him. But the second goal as well was just magnificent. A sweeping move from Argentina to make it 2-0 at half-time. And you have to say they deserved that lead. And certainly for most of the people here, other than a few handful of pockets of French fans, very much delighted that it's going Argentina's way.
But, Dan, as much as this is about Argentina and France, it's also a special moment for Qatar.
Yeah, that's right. Today is actually Qatar National Day, and so you can see around me there's lots of families, lots of people out here still this evening. They've been out all day, just enjoying having this moment, this Qatar National Day falling on the World Cup final. And certainly, look, I mean, there have been controversies around this World Cup, there's no doubt. Even the awarding of the tournament here has raised eyebrows. And then, of course, we also, of course, had, controversies around migrant workers' rights, and then, all sorts of other controversies in the build-up to this tournament. But Gianni Infantino and the local organisers, they defend that. They say that it's been the best World Cup ever. They say they're bringing it to an Arab country, the Middle East, that's really opened up a new football market, different football audiences, saying that the legacy of this World Cup will be, bringing football to a place that's just never experienced something like this. Now, there will, of course, be questions around that. That's going to continue for many years to come, no doubt. But for this moment, you can see people just being out here, enjoying this moment, enjoying having this World Cup spotlight on them for one last day.
Dan Williams in Doha, I'll let you get back to the match. Thank you for now. Well, let's head to Argentina now, because Joel Richards is in Buenos Aires for us. Joel, talk us through the reaction in Buenos Aires to seeing the team go 2-up against the defending champions.
Well, you can probably still hear it. We've got bangers going off, we've got fireworks going off. The carnival atmosphere that we saw here in Buenos Aires from early in this morning has just been ramped up a notch. As we said, there's fireworks, there's bangers, there's drums, there's chants. A lot of people hiding from the midday sun just behind me at the obelisk, which is the central meeting point in the heart of Buenos Aires, where football supporters come to celebrate any success. And of course, this would be a success that means so much to the country. But just going back to those goals, needless to say, the city erupted. I think it's fair to say the country erupted in joy and euphoria at seeing, first of all, Lionel Messi's goal, and then the brilliant team goal for the second goal scored by Angel Di Maria, two of the old guard of Argentina's side, a side made up of a number of youngsters. And then also there's a psychological aspect I think many people here tuned into, which is seeing France make a double substitution just 5 minutes before half-time. They have the feeling that they've rattled France. There's still a long way to go, that's without saying. But the feeling here is they're almost there.
Well, we all know that Argentines are big fans of football, but describe what winning this World Cup would mean for the nation.
That they are very passionate about their football and about many things, but on a number of levels, if you like, this would be so important for Argentina. It would be the first World Cup for the country since 1986, a third World Cup title. As we've talked about so often over the past month, a first for Lionel Messi in his last game in international football, and a crowning moment for a simply astonishing career. And I think many people want to see that happen. For a younger generation, and by young I include people up to 35 years of age, they've never seen the country win a World Cup. So there's that level as well. And then there's also the social, the economic context in a country that's really suffering very high inflation, one of the highest inflation rates in the world, up to 92% annually. If people can just imagine how on earth businesses, people, workers can deal with that kind of inflation. So there's no sense that people have been distracted as such by this, but it has brought a joy, a happiness, and many people say that people who've had a hard time with it over the last couple of years deserve to celebrate a World Cup title.
It has always been both of them. Maradona and Messi are both ours. I don't compare them. They are ours. They are Argentinian. They are both the best.
This World Cup has helped us disconnect from the day-to-day problems that we have. It has brought us happiness. We needed this.
Football brings many things together. You can forget your problems. That is the beauty. You can leave differences to one side and football can unite people.
What with the national team has achieved, I'm very happy, but of course we hope Messi can win the World Cup.
So it would mean a huge amount to Argentina, and as we said, not long to go then to see if Lionel Messi can draw level with Diego Maradona and perhaps put to bed that debate about who is the greatest.
Joe Richards in Buenos Aires, thank you very much. Let's head to Paris now and join Alex Caddy on the Champs-Élysées. Alex, disappointing from France so far. Oh, we don't seem to have Alex's sound. Sorry about that. Let me see if we can tweak that and bring him back into the programme. But let's hear what French fans have been saying ahead of the game.
Everyone is wearing their red, white and blue. It's so nice to see the French so proud of their team. After the game, we'll go to the Champs-Élysées, and I think the atmosphere will be amazing.
It's going to be fire. I can't wait. And vive la France.
I'm afraid we haven't been able to get Alex back, and that's nothing to do with France's disappointing performance so far, but sorry about that. Hopefully we'll be able to bring him later in the show. Ukraine's president spoke to football fans ahead of the World Cup final and called for a global peace summit to end the war in his country. In a video address ahead of the final match, Volodymyr Zelensky called the competition a celebration of the human spirit. He reminded fans that in sharp contrast to the beautiful game, there are no champions in war, saying let's witness the final together and the end of war. Reports say at least 19 people have been killed and dozens more injured after a fuel tanker exploded in an Afghan tunnel. The Salang tunnel is about 80 kilometres north of Kabul and is a key link between the country's north and south. The provincial government spokesman said women and children are among the victims and that the number of casualties could yet rise. It wasn't immediately clear what caused the explosion. China's top epidemiologist warns the country is experiencing the first of 3 expected COVID waves this winter. China's dealing with its worst coronavirus outbreak in 3 years since the government eased pandemic restrictions. Temporary fever clinics are being set up across the country to help ease pressure on hospitals. A number of Chinese cities have started to offer a second booster to those in high-risk groups. A nasal spray vaccine is also being offered. Feng Yilei reports.
This vaccination site has seen a growing number of people since several districts in Beijing started the booster campaign on Thursday. That follows a call from China's top health authority to prioritize boosters for high-risk groups, especially the seniors and those with underlying conditions. The organizers have made efforts to encourage more of the vulnerable group to seek out a second booster shot.
They even arrange vehicles to take the elderly to and from homes, which is very considerate for the individuals.
The community has informed and educated us. I come here as soon as I read their notification. I'm 70 years old. I think I need a jab soon in case severe symptoms strike me down.
China now has approved 13 types of vaccines. To enhance effectiveness against the dominant Omicron variant, residents are recommended to choose vaccines that use a different method. Inhaled vaccines are widely used as the second booster.
To make it more convenient and less painful for patients, we use nasal spray vaccine. They're more acceptable, especially for the high-risk groups, and less risky. At present, Omicron variants mostly cause upper respiratory symptoms, and this nasal spray inhaled vaccine does better in producing antibodies in upper respiratory tract, which is more helpful to reduce risk of infection.
And it's not only about making vaccination drives more accessible, but also less risky to the public. To reduce the possibility of infection, here we can see medical staff are trying to keep this indoor vaccination site well ventilated, timely disinfected, and they are also ensuring a safe distance between people receiving different types of boosters.
The Chinese government said on Wednesday nearly 90% of people above the age of 60 and over two-thirds of seniors of 80 had completed their full COVID-19 vaccine regime. Some local governments have set up goals to immunize even more by the end of January. Feng Yilei, CGTN, Beijing.
Still ahead on CGTN, the headscarf that sparked a revolution. Now there are signs Iran may be rethinking its strict rules over the hijab.
I can't wait to tell the story of the real China to the world.
70 years ago, a small group of British businessmen travelled to China to unlock opportunities between the two countries. They became known as the icebreakers.
I'm travelling around China, introducing China to the world. There are so many stories here to tell.
So my family has been connected with China now for almost 150 years. My task now is to set us up for the next 150 years.
Each side has a huge amount to offer the other. Neither is right or wrong, and each can learn from the other.
These are the foundations that create the links between ordinary people.
Try to see China as a process rather than a fixed point.
Over the last 25 years, I've been connecting China with Scotland, Angus with Yantai.
We should be encouraging even greater two-way exchange.
By far the most important thing is to tell stories.
Manchester's been my home and Wuhan is my second home.
Meet the bridge builders, the individuals who dare to think beyond the horizon and open up our world.
If we can build bridges, we can learn more from one another. That can only lead to good things for both sides.
This week on Razor's Biodiversity Special, a community coming together to save an endangered species vital to fresh waterways, and scientists working to bring back one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet.
We scientists need to be actually out there trying to change things rather than studying the loss and the decline of these oceans that once supported us.
Welcome back. A reminder of our top headlines. It's the World Cup final, and Argentina captain Lionel Messi is on course for a fairy tale farewell. And let's head to Paris now and join Alex Cadier, who is back, and we've got his sound back so we can hear from you. Disappointing from France so far, Alex. Talk us through what's at stake.
Yeah, bitterly disappointing for the French fans, but as you can see behind me, they're not dissuaded either. They're still hanging on to hope. France was hoping to be the third country ever to win back-to-back World Cups. That would have been a huge achievement, obviously winning it back in 2018. That was a huge achievement for France. Reporting then from France at the time, it was absolute elation in the streets of Paris and the streets of other major cities in the country. Not so much today, slightly more subdued now in the second half, hoping to see their team come back from this 2-0 defeat. All their hopes relying on one Paris player, Kylian Mbappe, the 23-year-old superstar from the French team, hoping that his pace and his speed and his ability will be able to help the French come up against the Argentinians, because they have been scored against by another Paris player, Lionel Messi, the other end of the age gap when it comes to football. But as you can see behind me, a very disappointing night so far, but still hope and encouragement from the French fans here in Paris.
Alex Cadier, I'll let you get back to the team to go and to support your country. Alex Cadier in Paris, thank you. The UK government says it's resolute on nurses' pay despite threats of yet more strikes. Ongoing industrial action is causing major disruption across Britain, from healthcare to travel and mail services. And the rift between the government and trades unions appears to be deepening. Well, Paul Barber joins me now. Paul, talk us through the latest.
Well, Juliet, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has been writing in one of the Sunday newspapers today that the Labour union bosses are the Grinches who want to steal Christmas. He says that particularly the strikes from the railway workers are going to cause misery for millions of people, and that they have been cruelly timed. Now, there are due to be at least one walkout a day, every single day up to Christmas now, by workers across different sectors. And unions, not just for rail workers, but also for nurses, for ambulance drivers, for baggage handlers at airports, for postal workers, and others, all say that the offers being made by the government for pay are just not enough to help their members cope with the cost of living crisis, with inflation now more than 10% for the year up to November.
This past week saw the biggest strike by nurses since the UK's National Health Service was established in 1948. Essential care continued, but it caused serious disruption in a service already buckling under pressure. Nursing leaders are calling for a pay rise 5% above inflation, and polls show the public support them.
We're here because this government has turned its back on nursing. And when they turn their back on nursing, they've turned their back on patients, and they've turned their back on the NHS.
Nurses begin their second day of strikes on Tuesday, with the union's leader saying more severe action will be taken in the new year if ministers don't resume talks within 48 hours of the walkout. Negotiations collapsed last week, with the government saying nurses' demands are unaffordable.
But we also recognise the huge contribution that we saw from nurses during the pandemic, and that's why last year we made a special case where nurses got an extra 3% when others in the public sector did not. But we've got to balance that against what is affordable to the wider economy, and asking for a 19% pay rise way above what most viewers themselves are receiving is not affordable given the many other economic pressures that we face.
Britain faces widespread industrial unrest in the run-up to Christmas, with more than 40,000 railway workers taking strike action in December and January in a long-running dispute over pay and conditions, as workers struggle with double-digit inflation. Some 10,000 ambulance staff will strike on the 21st and 28th of December, with Border Force staff also walking out over Christmas. Thousands of military personnel and civil servants are being drafted in to maintain services. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has said this weekend that train employees and border officers have been offered fair and affordable deals, although he didn't mention ambulance workers or nurses.
Paul, how are unions reacting to that decision to bring in the military as backup during strikes?
Well, they're saying that the military aren't really trained sufficiently to drive ambulances, you know, at high speed, to drive through red lights, also to man borders. They're saying that the military shouldn't be put in this invidious position because they've got enough on their plate. The head of the armed services today also said that his services should really be focusing on their primary roles and that it would be perilous to rely on military officers to step in the case of strikes going forward. This Prime Minister Rishi Sunak saying that the government is doing all it can to keep services going and to ensure people get the Christmas that they deserve. The government's also tomorrow going to be publishing what it's calling a resilience framework, which will set out how the UK could improve the way it anticipates and responds to big issues like strikes. But at the moment, neither side is backing down. They're really, really digging in. For now, the public seem to be pretty much on the side of the strikers. So this December of discontent, there's a lot more still to play out.
December of discontent. Oh, goodness me, that's gloomy. Paul Barber, thank you very much. Iranian authorities have arrested one of the country's best-known actresses after she voiced support for anti-government protests. Tarena Ali Dousti, star of Oscar-winning film The Salesman, posted a video of herself on Instagram without a headscarf, condemning the execution of a protester. A week later, she was detained on charges of spreading falsehoods. Her Instagram account has been suspended. Well, one of the key demands of the anti-government protests in Iran that are into their 4th month has been freedom for women to choose whether to wear a headscarf or not. There are some signs Iran's leaders are considering a change. Eshan Kevani reports.
Iranian officials say the country's parliament and the Supreme Council of the Cultural Revolution, chaired by President Ebrahim Raisi, are investigating possible modifications on how the hijab law should be implemented. President Raisi says the country's constitution has a certain number of principles which are unchangeable. However, he says the methods used to implement the principles can be modified.
منظور ایشون بازنگری در شیوه اجرای قانون حجاب هست.
I think the Iranian parliament is working to revise how the hijab law is implemented. I think the parliament will soon publicize its decision.
زودی نتایجش همونطوری که ایشون هم.
Iranian women have their own differing demands and expectations.
I think the hijab is a totally personal decision. One could have it and the other might not like it, just like many other countries.
I believe that the atmosphere should not let women act freely. Women must be educated so that they learn that hijab is good for themselves.
Any individual should be able to freely choose whether to have the hijab or not. The hijab should not be compulsory and imposed in society.
I would say the hijab needs to be established in culture. We cannot force people to wear the hijab.
After the death of the 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in the custody of a hijab guidance patrol in Tehran, widespread protests erupted across the country with unprecedented demands from women who opposed forced hijab wearing. Since then, many women, especially in the capital Tehran, do not wear the hijab, and there are no morality police anymore. Recently, the country's Attorney General said the so-called morality police was not run and administered by the judiciary. However, it was abolished by the Interior Ministry. Analysts believe the government will show flexibility over hijab for women, and there would be no more violent encounters with women without a hijab in public places. Ehsan Keivani, CGTN, Tehran.
In Madrid, it's that time of year again. Spain's capital has become a sea of red and green as thousands of Santa Clauses and elves take part in an annual Christmas run to raise money for charity. Ken Brown has more.
Santa Claus is coming to town. In fact, 6,000 Santas have descended on Madrid for the annual run. The beards are on and running shoes are tied as everyone will pound the streets to help raise money for charity. Last year, funds were raised for the victims of the volcano eruptions in La Palma on the Canary Islands. This year, there's a different cause.
It's a party of sport, a Christmas party that's also a charity run. It's already brought in over €6,000 for the Red Cross, so that children who wouldn't have otherwise can enjoy playing with some toys this Christmas.
1 in 3 children in Spain are at risk of poverty or social exclusion. And with soaring inflation leading to high food and energy prices this year, more families are now suffering. Thousands have signed up to help today. Despite the cold, spirits were high and people of all ages took to the streets for a good cause. It's the 11th edition of the Santa Run and it's become a permanent fixture on the calendar. It's just over 4 kilometres and the hope is that the money raised today will be redistributed by the Red Cross to help children at risk of social exclusion and give kids in struggling families a gift this Christmas.
This run was super fun and short, it's not difficult, and we are celebrating the beginning of the Christmas, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas.
I started several years ago and it's become a tradition for me, and I run with my wife, she's around there.
Incredible, the Christmas atmosphere. I mean, it was a dream for me.
By signing up for the run, you get the full Santa suit, including pants, hat, jacket and beard, and even a belt along with an official certificate of participation. And don't worry if red isn't your colour, you can go for a green elf outfit too. Great fun and for a good cause. Hopefully this Christmas, children won't have to go without, thanks to the generosity we're seeing today. Ken Brown, CGTN, Madrid.
I was hoping that Ken Brown was going to be dressed as Santa, but what can you do? But it does seem that Santas all over the world have been dashing through the doors without their sleighs. They have mobilised all modern means of transport, though, from bikes to gondolas. And all of that's to raise awareness for children's charities and, of course, keep the Christmas spirit alive. I do hope, though, that Rudolph Prancer and all the other reindeers still get to keep their jobs. The headlines again. It's the World Cup final, and Lionel Messi's on course for his fairy tale farewell. Argentina lead France 2-0. China rolls out COVID vaccines among vulnerable groups following the worst outbreak in 3 years. Strike standoff. The UK's government stands resolute on pay as trade unions threaten yet more walkouts. And that's the world today. Thanks for watching. We're on smart TV apps, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube and Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app. And here in the UK, 24 hours a day on Freeview. There'll be more news coming up at the top of the hour. But next, it's Razor. For now, from all the team here in London, goodbye.